up to speed, up to speed, up to speed.
Live from the apocalypse, where complicated becomes fun. This is State of the Game. I am Dan O, and I'm all. Some of you people are like, "Oh, why is he so mean to his co-host?" Look, I'm only rude to the people that I love. If I've been nice and cordial to you only, it's because I don't know you like that. So, my co-host, who I've been rude to over the years, is someone who knows 80 ways to cook a plantain, was locked in a safe and got out with a plantain. We're talking K Diggy. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, I was very happy to have it be just me and you this week because I'm still in a little bit of shell shock from last week.
Oh, last week's show?
Yes, Starlito.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, holy smokes. Are we just for people who are not on it during recommendation corner? We Kay was like, "Hey, I'm listening to The Drought 3 by Wayne."
Yeah.
You know, and he was like, "Oh, I get shouted out by that. I just got my gold plaque from being on Like Father, Like Son." And I'm like, "Holy shit, what?" And then when I was editing the episode, he just kind of casually dropped that he was on Trap or Die.
Very humble.
BT Dub,
just like almost an aside.
Huh?
It was just an aside from him, like, oh yeah, I know.
It was.
I just happened to be, Lil Wayne shouted me out on Drought 3. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I rapped with Wayne. I rapped with Jeezy. Yeah, sure. I was me and Yo Gotti hanging out. Like, it was incredible to be like, you're in the Zoom with like a piece of hip hop history.
Mm-hmm.
And you can that's why the episode last week breaks into two parts, right? The second part is the album, going deep into the album. And the first part was like overview of the industry. Like, what have you seen? You know?
Yeah.
And if I had to do it over again, I was thinking about it, I was like, if I had to do it over again, I wouldn't have done a bunch of, oh my God, what was it like being on Trap or Die? Or like, oh my God, what was it like, being with Wayne at that time? I wouldn't have done a bunch of those questions because I kind of made a vow that if I get somebody on, it's because I'm excited where they are right now.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So I still wanted it to orient around imposter syndrome, how great that is.
Yeah.
And I'm glad it did. But someone with that level of knowledge, I had to start off with kicking some, like, just in general, what have you seen? You know?
I mean, these guys like that are, they're the bearers of history of the modern hip hop history. So when you're able to pick their mind and see from their perspective how things have changed and how things have evolved, I mean, you have to take that chance.
Is the only power that we have, Kay, like, in my opinion. Like, we're not like important musicians. At least I don't know that you are. I don't believe anything. But our power is we genuinely want to know how you feel and how it feels to be you and what your world is, you know? And so we can sit there, and when he said, "This is my truth," I stopped and listened. I didn't talk over him. You know what I mean? I was like, all right, I'm interested in your truth. And we put that up. Man.
Yeah, he was phenomenal. It was it was a gift to have him on.
Yeah. Yeah. No, legendary shit, man. And this is really, we are discussing two albums. Okay. But these two albums, in my mind, are a single topic. Okay. And maybe, I don't know if I didn't pull that together in the breakdown, but it's kind of come together in my head. We were talking about Memoirs in Armour by Navy Blue,
Hmm.
and Shadowbox by Mavi, right?
Hmm.
And what I think we're talking about is, in the most general sense, art versus commerce, but to drill a little bit under that, that would be like, the big thing on the poster. A little under that is like, when you want to make something personal and evocative and poetic, how do you also make it palatable for a new audience? How
Mm.
do you expand your audience while doing that? You know?
Hmm.
And do you? Like, like, what was that? Remember we talked to Chesky, and he was like, I'm done. Like, I've got my fans. I know who they are, and I'm just gonna, do my music for them.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't think that's bad, right? Like, that's, if you accept that as where you are, that's cool. Like that, um, it's not that
What is,
yeah.
in your opinion, what's the benefit of growing your audience?
Well, if you're confident in yourself as an
Yeah.
artist, one of the things you find faced with, and that's when I was doing my stuff and I was out there, the only reason I wanted a new audience was because I felt like they could benefit from what I was talking.
Hmm.
I was like, I wasn't even on stage for me. I wasn't even on stage trying to get hot. I wanted them to feel a different perspective and way to do it. There was one open mic where I got on stage, and everybody's writing poems about getting love and losing love, and all this kind of cool stuff. And I had written a piece about a boxer who got put in a coma because of his, like, because of what happened in the ring, and how I spent the whole week checking for updates and not paying attention to my family because I wanted this guy to get out of it and live.
Hmm.
And then he did. And it was, I was like, I just wanted them to see there's a different way to do this. It doesn't have to be one of three ways. There's no limit to the ways, right?
Hmm.
Um, and that's why I wanted an audience, is because I wanted more people to know that. I felt like the pieces were good enough that I wanted them out to more people.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's not always about like money and hustling and, rise and grind, any of that. Like, a lot of times you just feel like this is good art, and people out there want good art. So
Right.
let me give them, you know. Um, yeah, it's does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, that checks out to me.
So we were talking about this in the RMPP Discord, of like, somebody was saying, I recommend independent underground hip hop all the time, and 10 to 15% of the time people take it seriously and listen and care. And I said 10 to 15% is a good percentage. That's a
But
good,
that's out of 10 people, one person. Well, yeah,
that's a damn good percentage. And
absolutely.
but if you pull in one person out of 10 and they genuinely become into it, they genuinely like, holy shit, now I'm a huge fan of so and so. Where
Hmm.
do I get more? Right? Oh, he's coming by. I might go to the show. That feels great,
Yeah.
right? Like, that's a great feeling. So, you know, and that person now has a whole new world, right?
Hmm.
I think that might be the most undervalued thing that I want everybody to realize, is that I you had to get over being scared of listening to someone you don't know. Because it is scary to start, like, this could be the worst thing I've ever heard. You know?
Scared. Okay, scared. I mean, scared is a strong word. I think. I think in today's time, there's just so many things vying for our attention.
Right. That's true.
Like,
That's true.
uh, attention is a currency.
Right.
You know what I mean? Everywhere you go, you wake up, you look at your phone. There's people trying to get your attention. There's people and things trying to get your attention. You walk outside, things are trying to get your attention. You get in your car. Everywhere you go, things are vying for your attention. Uh, in a way that it wasn't in the past. It's just like snowballing downhill. So when someone like recommends something, that you're spending some of your attention on it, on
Yeah.
whatever that person recommends.
Yeah. I mean, so to put it in perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Think about like think about an album that was good but not amazing from 2022
Okay.
and try and think about the last time you thought about that album.
In 2022. Oh my gosh.
So let me get I just pulled up my album of the year 2022 list.
Okay.
And I had number 22, I had Pro God You're Beautiful, Preauxx. I haven't
Mhm.
thought about that album in a long time, dude.
Right.
And it's a great album. It's not the best, right? It's great, but it's not the best. Um, you know, think of the Coffee Gifted was 28, right?
Oh wow.
Remember that? Like
Yeah.
it's not it that shit, you know. It if it it's it's very hard to vie for our attention right now. But
Well, there's so
it's
many waves. You know what
yeah,
I mean? Like you think of 2022. You experience. It's like a surfer. I'd like to think in a lot of ways. Like you experience that wave, you surf that wave, and then you look up and there's another wave coming, and you got to surf that wave too. And there's just waves continuously coming, so you don't have time to think, oh man, you remember that wave we did about 20 minutes ago? That was amazing,
right.
because there's another wave coming on.
Yeah, I mean it's the waves are an important metaphor, right? In the sense that some albums, this is a weird thing, but some albums plug in and because music is about emotion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some albums fulfill the emotion that your favorite album from last year.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's an interesting way to put it, but yeah, I agree.
It's
I see what you're
it's
saying.
like the new version of this kind of character actor or something. You know what I mean? You're like, oh wow, that's cool. John Goodman's the new Brian Dennehy.
Well,
That kind of thing.
I think it's more, evolution. Like
Yeah,
you think about it, like your favorite album of 2022 is probably being listened to by that same person who's giving you what they heard in 2022. So they're probably just, oh yeah, yeah, I like what he did there. Let me see if I can build on it.
yeah, and that goes all the way back, right?
Right.
And the one person from 2022 that I loved was influenced by this album from '04, right? And so all these waves back and forth. But what I find for me
Okay.
is that the albums that I'm still bumping from last year, from the year before that, are albums that weren't replaced.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you can't replace Channel Orange.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's that's one of the things I was thinking about was, you know, does this have a place? Uh and the albums that keep a place like that are so brilliantly unique in themselves, unflinchingly, that they remain, right?
Mm,
They don't get, they're not compromised,
mhm.
so they can't be replaced, you know?
Uh, yeah, I see what you mean. I mean, I think it's almost like, for me, it's almost like a two-way street. So like, the album in itself has to be special, but I think it has to come along at like just the right time in your personal life where it resonates with
Right,
you
right.
in a specific way that nothing else did at that time. So it's almost like, it's special, but at the same time, you're going through a unique, special situation where this resonates with you, and in a way that other things wouldn't have at the time.
And there's like way more of an understanding of that in literature
Mm-hmm.
than there is in anything else, right? That like you you know, there's, Kafka was not an important author in his life. He was not really an important author in his death until later, when his stuff got published and gained steam over time.
Mm-hmm.
And he became this giant, in the world of literature. But no one he ever knew got to see that.
Right.
No one he never. So like that happens all the time because the world's just not ready at that time for what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a kind of acknowledged, but in hip hop, it's not really the same because hip hop has always functioned off in immediacy in a way, you know. Um, but as these works, both of these albums, right? Um, the Shadowbox and the Memoirs and Armour, both of these albums are personal and poetic,
Yes.
and so they become transgressive to that immediacy, right?
What does transgressive mean?
Uh, they're kind of a rebellion against that immediacy.
Okay. Okay. All right. I see what you're saying.
They are, you know, they are looking to etch these things in, right? Um, and I'm always fascinated by that because how does the market deal with it?
Mm.
How does that work? Right? Like, but I was thinking about J. Cole a lot, right?
Okay.
Both of these rappers, in my opinion, are better writers than J. Cole.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't lie to you, bro. J. Cole's got a flow, right?
Absolutely.
He can wow you on a flow. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and he can create a moment. And I was just thinking to myself, how necessary is that moment? And does that moment compromise the coherence of what you're trying to etch?
Well, you look at a J. Cole, and I look at it more as in terms of their careers. I think of it in like a career aspect, not in terms of art. I think J. Cole made decisions that allowed him to be in the role that he's in now,
Mm,
in terms of his career decisions.
right.
You look at his first album, like he had the mixtapes. His first album, he had to make artistic decisions in order to guide his career to where he wanted it to be. And so I think you get detached. You start you start veering away from artistic decisions and then career decisions.
Right.
And it becomes you start making more career oriented decisions as opposed to artistic decisions. And that's why sometimes you end up in completely different places.
Yeah. And sometimes lost, right? Like this
Artistically,
was not
yes.
where I wanted to be,
Yes.
but here I am.
I
Yeah.
mean, this is where I wanted to be career-wise, but artistically, this is not where I want to be.
And
And
yeah,
you can't once the sad thing is like once you go that path, it's almost like footsteps in sand. Like you're not going back.
total. No, it's true. And I think um memoirs and armor, or is it armoire? Is it like because there's a U in this motherfucker?
Armour, yeah.
Let's say armoire. I don't know. Someone, yeah, pronounce it for me. But it's I feel I was telling somebody navy blue is what Kyle would be if he cared about the market.
In what way?
Like he had his moment album. It was Songs of Sage post Panic, right?
Mhm.
Like that was a crazy album. Uh, it was huge. It was incredibly personal. It magnificent cover, the whole thing. He last year he got signed to Def Jam
Yes.
and predictably put out his worst album. And I think he's off Def Jam now. I
Yeah,
think
then he got dropped. I'll read you the description. So he released a note with the album. It said, the album was essentially an 8-track EP in response to the fact that the album I had worked so hard on for the past 2 years wasn't able to come out due to being dropped from Def Jam. I'm grateful to have been inspired enough to make this album within the past few months. Due to the shift in circumstances, this project became a refuge to me. I hope you enjoy it. I'm happy to be putting this album out independently, the way I had always intended to be releasing music, a gift from me to you.
yeah, yeah. So this album is him understanding. Look, Def Jam's not going to do this for me, right? You don't get signed and then rocket ship.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to do this myself. You know, uh, I'm gonna have to get this going myself, and I really believe that Navy Blue wants to reach a bigger audience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I really believe that, and it's yeah, it's just fascinating to me to see the choices made and the way this album shapes up, you know. Budgie Beats, Chuck Strangers, child actor. I mean, it's pretty interesting. Navy
Yeah.
Blue has some, pretty slow and yeah, there's some definite. Oh yeah, Craven was on Red Roses. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now he's yeah. This is not a tough listen sonically.
No, I mean, and it's only 26, it's 10 tracks, 26 minutes, I believe.
Yep.
But it goes by, I mean, it goes down smoothly, I guess you could say.
Yeah. I mean, how did you feel about it overall?
I like it. I liked it. I think um what I mean, I think because what I thought it kind of what you said earlier about the market, releasing something like this into the market. I think that the way that people listen to music has changed. And I don't know if the market, like if you wanted to grow your audience,
Right.
the market, this is not an album that the market is going to like consume, because they just don't listen to music in that way. And whereas there'll be demand for this type of project.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's really interesting.
Right.
Um
And for me, it also like both him and Mavi, like I just kept going back to I just like I wrote down in my notes like, what is the definition of a rapper? Because these guys feel more like poets to me than rapping. And then I just thought like a rapper makes rap songs, you know, and then I went down the rabbit hole like, what is a rap song? It's just, long story short, like these guys don't feel like rappers to me.
yeah, I mean, what was it? Time Slips or Say the Word? What are the songs near the end? He
Hmm.
starts singing. I really
Yeah.
like when he starts singing. Uh, but you're right about the basic composition of the way Navy Blue and Mavi, especially. I think there's no way to talk about Mavi without talking about like actual poetic meter,
Yes.
right? Like, um, yeah, the way these guys cut their lines off, right? The succinctness of how they deliver.
Yeah.
Uh, it's not spitting, right? Like that spitting is not what they do. They do
Right.
something, you know. Uh, so that is definitely a part of that discussion, and the poetic literary component is strong here. Lyrically, there's stuff going on.
Yeah.
Beats are very good, very pleasant, very well picked out. It's not
Hmm.
long,
Hmm.
but because yeah, we're gonna be positive and negative here today. um, if someone pressed you and said, "What is the high point of Memoirs and Armour?" What would you say? Do you have a high point?
Not not really. To me, it's almost like, when it's almost like a walk through the woods. I mean, it'd be like if I went on a walk through the woods and someone asked you, like, you get out in the car and be like, "Oh, what was the high point of the walk through your woods?" You'd be like, "I didn't have a high point. I just really enjoyed walking through."
Yeah, I
Uh,
think that is it, and that's one of the issues in terms of the album. That it's you walk through the woods. What do you remember from the woods? If nothing crazy happened, you might not remember anything.
right. I mean, it's almost one. Like, I mean that it sounds like I didn't like, because I did like the project. I thought, I mean, in terms of lyrics and poetry, I mean, there were some very potent moments. I thought he did a good job of setting the mood that he was going for, but at the end of the day, everything kind of just, it was like a nice casual walk through the woods. It just blended together
Right.
to me. Not in a bland way. It just,
Yeah.
so I can't really, there were no moments that kind of like, oh wow, like,
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, and I think we both need to let go of feeling bad for saying negative things about this stuff, because these these artists are very good.
yeah,
They're very talented people, right?
yeah,
And we've really enjoyed their stuff, right? Mavi and Navy, you know,
right.
these are people we will continue to enjoy and support. But that doesn't mean we can't, come to grips with how we're feeling here.
And
Uh,
I didn't mean it as a negative way. I just think it kind of ties into, to go back to the market. Like, this is not an album you could necessarily play on your way to work.
Right.
There's nothing, and when I say walk in the wood, like there's nothing that stands out where, let's say you drive to work, you're listening to the album, you get out of the car, and then you get right back into the album. You don't, this isn't that type of project to me.
Yeah,
So
it
that,
doesn't
yeah,
it doesn't flow in chunks. It doesn't like, oh, the first part is this, and then it switches into the second part, which is like this. You know what I mean?
right. There's no, like I think of like an album, uh, and I go back to it. What was Saba's album, Care for Me? That was a very personal album,
Yep, it was.
but there was at the same time, there were still moments where I could specifically go, there are certain songs I go back to where I play those in the car. I may not listen to the whole thing, but I'll go back to certain moments in the album because they're so like memorable and potent to me.
Right. Even Kendrick suffered from this, right? Like
Mhm.
back in the day. Kendrick had an issue where like, where's your single? You know? And when he did the Drank song,
Right.
we felt like maybe he's cracked it. Maybe he's figured it out. Like the swimming pools drank, like that was catchy.
Right.
He found his way to catchy. But he's still at a point. The song still has a point, right?
Absolutely.
It's still meaningful. So and it still pushes the story. So
Yeah.
I think at that point, even To Pimp a Butterfly has all right.
Oh yeah. That was a huge song. King Kunta.
Yep.
Uh,
You
you
can
know,
still you can still put on, all right, and it goes crazy. Like
oh yeah.
so
What's the song? How much a dollar costs?
right.
Uh, yeah. So you can take people on, like the journey or whatnot, but you gotta have memorable moments. Like, okay, we're gonna stop here and take a look at, this, I don't know, rock quarry. You can mine diamonds here or something. I'm just pulling things out, but
Right.
that way we're enjoying the journey, but there are certain things that like stick out to us that we can go back to.
Yeah, well, and to talk about the navy blue thing in full, right?
Mm-hmm.
2020 was Songs of Sage, right? That was the dealing with the death of his father.
Mm-hmm.
Navy's Reprise was life after the loss of your father. And then we went into Ways of Knowing, and there started to be chatter of like Navy Blue just talks about his dad all, you know? Uh, because as when
Mm-hmm.
you're mourning at a speed that's way too slow for everyone else around you. Everyone else
Mm-hmm.
around you is like, you done with the dad thing yet?
Right.
Because
You're not mourning for consumption.
we're all very callous and we all don't care about anybody but ourselves. So that's PSA from Dan. But I think it's when you've had that kind of success linked specifically to the death of your father and how personal you were.
Mm-hmm.
How do you keep rebuilding that without new tragedy? Right? How do you go to the
Rebuilding
next
that, when you say
level?
rebuilding what?
The connection that you have with your audience, the impact, right?
Mm. I think I mean this the way I think of it, it's like when you have something like that as an artist, you have to figure out a way, okay, to craft the story in terms of, okay, this is what happened. I'm only thinking about, okay, I'll tell you what I would do. And if I'm wearing like my artist cap, I'm thinking of it, okay, so this is the tragedy. One, I'm trying to figure out what am I trying to communicate? And then two, what is the narrative that I can create? What is the story that I can create regarding this? so that it has a beginning, it has a middle, and it has an ending that the listener can take away from it, a message.
Yeah, I someone like Mike as an example, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who's really important in the underground. And one of the things that we've been talking about Mike's catalog, he had a real turning point album, Disco, where he opened himself up to kind of brighter, lighter sounds.
Mm-hmm.
And basically Mike was letting the production lead him in the content.
Mm-hmm.
He made brighter, lighter sounds, so he made a more positive album about piecing together a positive outlook out
Cool.
of the rubble, right? So, and it opened up his sound, right? And so now, like, you can feel Mike where the production leads Mike, right?
Mm-hmm.
The sonic background becomes the beginning, you know. What is this album going to sound like? What is the sound of this album? Once I figure that out, then the story happens, you know. uh one of the things I would like to see, my favorite Navy Blue album, I think a lot of people would say Songs of Sage Post Panic, and it's amazing. I re-listened to it for this. My favorite's Navy's Reprise.
Mm-hmm.
Navy's Reprise, and it over the years, I've just listened to a lot of Navy's Reprise. I think he was picking livelier beats at that point because he didn't want to be in that sorrow space forever.
Mm-hmm.
And he was, those livelier beats amped up the energy on his choruses, on his hooks. They added bounce to his step. I
Mm-hmm.
need Navy Blue to get a bounce back in his flow. As as
I mean,
amazing
that's fair.
as amazing as a writer as he is, I feel like he's rapping flat footed.
I mean, it honestly, it didn't feel like rapping to me.
Maybe we're
Uh,
saying the same thing.
I mean, it felt like, I mean, is spoken word poetry, is that rapping to you?
I mean, he's rapping, but you know when you see somebody who's like, you know, a basketball player who always shoots flat footed, you know, they
Mm.
don't jump on their jump shot.
Hmm.
Like that's how his flow comes off to me
Okay.
on this album, right? I think on Navy's Reprise, there's balance in that step, there's jump there, like the hook's hook, you know, the verses move when there's bounce in your step and you're moving, and not flat-footed, everything moves quicker and easier, right? It's just less of a slog.
You know, it's interesting because it's funny. The only thing that I've been thinking about for the past couple of minutes, I've been thinking about 808s and Heartbreak by Kanye. Um, and you know, I know that I always go back to Kanye, but
Always.
uh,
Okay.
that's to me. I mean, that's kind of a masterclass of what you want. You got to think before that before that album was released. You know, he had lost his mother. He had, I think he was engaged at the time, and he had just experienced like a breakup.
Yeah, he had the breakup, but I thought his mother died later.
No, it was around the same time.
Okay. Okay. That's okay.
I think so. I think his mother passed away in maybe 2007 or 8, and then the album came out like late 2008. Uh, maybe 2009. If I don't remember the exact timeline, but
Yeah.
nonetheless, like if you listen to something like that, you know, I mean, there's a lot of sad moments, like uh you know, like the song, what's the song, is it in the night, like Welcome to Heartbreak, or is it Heart,
Street
I think it's Heart,
Lights. Remember Street Lights? I love Street.
Streetlights,
Oh,
yes,
Street Lights. Oh, shit.
great song. Heartless, like
Heart.
Heartless is a very sad song about a breakup.
Oh, but I always tell everyone that that is a sea shanty.
A what?
That is a sea shanty.
What's a sea shanty?
It's like a goofy song that sailors sing on a ship.
Yes,
Heartless is a sea shanty. Like
yes,
it, and so there's melody, there's heavy melody at play on that album, right?
yes.
Like, and the swing and the sway of that uh carries the day. So look, I'm not saying you got to be Smino. Not everybody's Smino, right? In terms of the flow, in terms of like dancing everywhere. But Saba, you use Saba as an example, bro. Like
Yeah,
Saba was hitting you with flows on that very good things.
yeah.
You know, Saba was dancing and he was still giving you real shit. Like, so I don't know, man. Like the heavy footed personal stuff, it's, I love the writing. I worry about if you don't have the spring in your step, if you don't have the flow flowing, and the beats, it's not like the beats are like, I did a full album with Messiah Music, so we created a world together. It's a grab bag of different beats, right? From different people that are known people, you know. So these are sounds we've heard before. To me, Memoirs and Armour is kind of exactly like number 34 album of the year that you won't remember 2 years from
I mean, if we're going by the note that he wrote with and released with the album, maybe these were just some things that were helping him, almost like a distraction for himself to kind of work through his emotions for the time. So, you know, I guess I think this project was more for him. But that's the thing. Like once you get to a certain degree of success, people can't distinguish. Like everything that you do is going to be viewed as like a moment,
now.
or as, you know, like there's going to be, it's going to be critical. It's going to be critically viewed.
Yeah.
So there's no distinguishing between, like, you know, this is just like an EP, or this is just a side project. They're going to review it as the same way that they would review or look at, like, you know, what is Navy's Reprise? Is that
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
album?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just a risk you take.
Yeah. I mean, like, I would, if I was pointing out a 3-song run, it would be like Low Threshold, Slow, and Basis. I liked those. That was a cool mix. But like, I don't have strong, like, so I want to tell people I don't hate this album. I wasn't disappointed by it. I was in fact very happy because like Ways of Knowing is in my opinion very bad. I did not like it at all. And I was very happy that he was not stuck in that zone anymore. So I am very excited. He's got, you know, a little juice back, and hopefully this is the practice session that gives us more in the future.
Yeah. I mean, it almost, I'm interested to hear what he was working on with Def Jam.
Yeah.
Because it seems like it sounded like he was very attached to what he was working on, that at this time he's not able to release.
We'll see if that ever sees the light of day. Yeah. But it's a perfect album for this discussion because he wants to maintain the kind of personal connection to his work and to his audience, but he wants to open it up a little bit, you know, and be in the market. But if he's going to be in the market, what is he giving to the market? Like,
You
yeah.
see, I don't view this project as something that where he's trying to gain an audience.
You just see this as like, here, take this, love you fans. I'll figure out something else later.
Something like that. Yeah,
Thank
let
you for
me
the
let
wait,
me keep
kind of
my
thing.
name.
Yeah.
Huh?
Thank
Let
you
me
for the
keep my
wait.
name out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Do you remember
Um,
Wayne's "Thank You for the Wait" mixtape series? Or
vaguely.
yeah, he was like, he basically just put him out whenever he was in label trouble and
Yeah.
couldn't release shit. So like, and maybe this is one of those kind of things.
Right.
Yeah, maybe I'm overthinking. Um, Shadowbox,
Yeah.
fascinating to me. A very impressive first list.
Hmm.
And but to your point, a poet album, right?
Yes.
A poet album like stanzas, you know,
Yes.
3 words, 5 words, next sentence, right?
100%.
You'll never catch Mavi going over the bar count, bleeding over the bar count, trying to make something fit. Like that's
No.
not, no, it's poetry, you know?
Yeah.
Um, how did you feel about Shadowbox?
It was a heavy listen.
Heavy.
It was not a light listen, but for me, I thought there were moments here. While it was a heavy listen, there were moments here that were memorable.
Yeah.
There was stuff I thought he did a good job of mixing in. Like you said, like if we're walking through the woods, there's memorable moments that I'm going to be able to attach to.
Yeah, I mean, he dug deep enough
Yes.
into that sadness uh that he really got to a unique place. Like so, and credit to Mavi. Mavi was making us aware in the weeks ahead. Like this album is going to be tough, right?
Hmm.
And I had heard from everybody, people had gotten advanced lists. This is hard, but it's good. So I tweeted after this Mavi album, I'm gonna have Larry June loaded right up. You know,
Hmm.
I gotta cleanse myself.
Well,
Uh, and he quote tweeted it and said, "Yes, you will. He'll need that." So he understood what he was putting out there,
yes.
which I thought was really interesting, really savvy, obviously, to get ahead of it.
Right.
Uh, but how do you sell an album this dark to your audience?
I mean, I think your audience is going to like the album regardless of what you do. I think something like this, you're not really trying to expand your audience. I think you're trying to develop a deeper relationship with the audience you have. Because I honestly think with this type of art, because of the market, this is the type of art where it's like I think the music business is becoming very fractured. So I think I said this like a couple of months ago. I used a metaphor. It's almost like if you want a certain type of thing, you're gonna have to go somewhere specific. So let's say I want like a shirt, like I don't know, a shirt for what's the alternative store in the mall?
Oh, Hot
The kid,
Topic?
yeah, Hot Topic or something. Like you're gonna if you want a shirt like one of those ironic like pop culture shirts, you're gonna have to go to Hot Topic.
Hey, pretending like he doesn't shop at Hot Topic. Fine. We'll allow it.
So, I think with these types, and Hot Topic is not trying to market to, the people who are going to shop at Macy's or something.
Right.
So I think this is almost like one of those albums where you just create it, and whoever's going to come and listen to it is going to come and listen to it. But you're not going to get those people who are shopping elsewhere. You're not going to get like someone who likes Drake to want to come and like, oh, let me check out that Mavi album after. Yeah, that's unrealistic to think that would happen.
Yeah, I think you're right that he did a good enough job giving you a unique product that isn't anywhere that you can't find easily.
Right.
So that's a benefit to this album. It's really good. I would say, how do I put this in a nice way? Critiquing wise, right? Critiquing wise, the negative that I would have here is that this album put me in touch with how unorthodox his flow really is.
Okay, in what way?
Like, I don't think Navy has an unorthodox flow. I think he just hasn't really explored all of it.
Well, I mean, the emphasis is, to me, the emphasis is more on the lyrics,
Right.
on what he's saying, more so than the delivery.
Whereas Mavi's diction, Mavi's delivery is naturally imperfect. He doesn't have one of the great flows, right? And he posted the written lyrics to one of his songs, and it was staggering. It was amazing.
Right.
And I was like, damn, Mavi's actually better to read.
Right. Yes, it was like you were saying, there's some the poets, or there's some rappers who are better, they pass the reading test where you can read their lyrics and it resonates just as much as hearing them actually rap.
Yes, sometimes the reading test was as good to read as to listen to, but this actually puts that balance a little off.
Mm-hmm.
Where I think Mavi might be a little better to read than to listen to.
Yes.
Which is not a natural balance, I think, in this music business. Well, the other thing is, we always talk about cohesion, right?
Mm-hmm.
We always talk about needing to have the songs sound like they're part of the same album, like that they go from one to another. This album to me might be a little too cohesive.
Okay. Cohesive in what way?
Like, I kept getting lost in this album, man. I kept being like, and I've listened to this a bunch. I've listened to this more than 4 times, dog. Like, I was like, am I on track? Am I on track 6? No, I'm on track 10. Like, I kept getting lost in where I was. It's 14 songs.
Mm-hmm.
There's a real sameness to the production, not in a terrible way, right? Like, these beats sound and they fit together. They fit together so snugly that sometimes you don't know where you are. Where for me, other people might be a lot smarter than me. I am totally open to that.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. I think with any project, it doesn't seem, how do I say this? There aren't a lot of, to me, I think what I'm interpreting what you're saying, there aren't a lot of, I think he's in his comfort. That's the best way to say it. He's in his comfort zone.
Right.
There aren't a lot of reaches outside his comfort zone that would kind of shake you up a little bit. You know, like I think there's some albums where like you know, there is that that cohesiveness, but then there's one or two songs or moments that kind of where the artist is reaching to do something different that kind of shakes you up a little bit, for good or for better or worse. So yeah, I don't think those types of moments are on this album. No.
Yeah, I mean, and I think like, so let me give you an example of the opposite of what I'm talking about, because I still feel silly dinging this album for being cohesive, right? I still feel like a bit of an idiot. So, Money Has No Owners, right? You remember that album?
Yeah.
Okay. Zilla Rocket, Chong Wizard, second track, Tough Guys Fill a Cemetery, giant beat, blues on it, nasty, shakes you right up. Track 6, Men Never Take Advice, somber, serious, soulful, right? And it starts that second half of the album that builds on that, right? So there's sonic changes you can point to that are ripples in the wave, right? That are just like, oh, the current change. Like, this album surprised me, right? And I realized, I was like, oh, this album, Shadowbox, doesn't surprise me. Once you're one or two songs in, that's the experience you're gonna get, you know. This is not an artificially sad album. I wanted to talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there's no surprising angles on the sadness.
Do you know what I mean by artificially sad? Like, it's not an artificially sad album in the sense that, you know, think about that Twister movie that you went and saw and loved with the tornado.
New one.
Yeah.
Oh no, I didn't see that. But
okay.
How was it?
No, I didn't see it either. The trailer looks awful, but that's an artifice. The tornado becomes our villain, right? A lot of people release sad albums where there's an externalized thing that's creating the sadness, right? Hey, drugs, death, right? Like, these things that are outside of me are affecting me. That's not what this album is. He talks about drug abuse. He talks about relationships. But this is a deeply spiritually sad album. Right? This is, I'm fucking sad and my life is fucked up.
Right.
And here's why. Right? And so this is a little bit, this is different. This is one of the movies where the main character has to investigate themselves and their own actions. You know?
What would be a movie like that? If you had to compare this, you use Twister. If you had to compare this to a movie, what movie are you thinking?
I'm trying to think of one of those like Oscar-ish kind of movies where like the main character was like musing on their own life and sad and just dealing with that the whole movie. I don't know. Was it that movie that Casey Affleck won an award for, you know?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That kind of joint.
Manchester by the Sea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like a sad ass fucking movie where the main character is just like, damn, you know. I
See,
just don't do those shit.
and that's why I think you almost, for me, you really have to think of these things in terms of like a fictional narrative. You know, it's not enough. Like if you're trying to expand your audience, I guess maybe that's the best way to put it. Like if you're trying to expand your audience, writing a or making a sad album is not going to do it. I think if you can make like a sad album that has like a narrative, almost like the difference between a TV series and a movie.
Right.
Like if you can figure out a way to make a project like, okay, this is going to be sad, but there's like a narrative towards it, and there's going to be a payoff for you listening to all this sadness, like almost like Shawshank Redemption. Like that's a sad movie, but then once you get, I'm not spoiling it because it came out like 30 years ago. Once you get to that ending hits harder, and that makes you want to go back and experience all of that sadness again.
Right. I mean, and that's why I don't. Such a great point you made. Rappers should not run from fiction as a thing, right? Rappers a lot of times want to hold to, I'm keeping it 100% real. It's just my life.
Right.
But the problem is, if you tie your life to your art 100%, it can fuck with your life and it can fuck with your art. You know, you have no space between the two.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, when I say fiction, it's like the way I think of it is figuring out a way as an artist, and maybe this is kind of different, the difference between poetry and rapping, because I think like you think of rapping and you think of like we'll go to Kendrick Lamar, "Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst."
right.
Like he's taking sad events, but he's figuring out a way to conceptualize them and figuring out a way to create a narrative around them that that the listener who's not in that space can attach to.
Right.
So I think you can draw from your life, but at the same time you're figuring out the narrative in the moment that you experience, that you can kind of, I don't want to say sell, but you can get people to hook on to.
Right. Just because you allow yourself fiction doesn't mean you're the game shooting 80 people an album, right?
Right.
It, it, you can allow your fiction to be a screen door, a thin screen door. The air's still coming through. You can still see the outside. You can go out whenever you want, but you have it. You have it. Keep the bugs out. keep a little separation, right?
Right.
From the inside to the outside. Love the outside, love the inside. But I got the screen door. I can separate this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that's keep the layer of fiction so you can conceptualize your thoughts. You can
Yes. Yeah, and I mean, and if you're just, it's a lot to ask an audience to what's the way I want to say this? It's going to come out a lot harsher than I mean it. It's a lot for to ask a new audience to commiserate with your misery. You know what I mean? Like if I had a dog and I did like an album about my dog dying, that may resonate with the people who had a dog. But if I don't have if you don't have a dog, you're gonna be like, all right, man. Like, but if you can figure out a way, like, what's this movie with Jennifer Aniston, Marley and Me?
Right.
People who don't have a dog love that movie.
Yep.
And that resonates with them. that's what you have to do if you're going to deal with like emotions like this, and you're going to, deal in these types of with these types of things.
Yeah, I mean it's weird. What you're talking about is real. Like if you walk in to a conversation with two people, say you know one and you don't know the other, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you go to talk to the person you know, but you're gonna wait and you listen to what they're saying, and the person you don't know is like, and then they cut my uncle's finger off as he was screaming my name. You might do the Homer Simpson back away into the shrubbery thing
Right.
and just be like, never mind, you know. Uh, that's how a crazy personal album like that, being the first listen, can hit in that way
Mm-hmm.
sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
where it's overwhelming, it's too much, you know.
Right.
And I
It's not
thought,
overwhelming, but there's just nothing for you to. It's like you go to a poetry reading and someone's on the stage like pouring their heart out, and you're just sitting in the audience like, oh, okay, man, yeah, like get it all out, get it off your chest, man. I know how much this means to you, but you don't resonate with it.
right, right, yeah. And I, yeah, this, like, obviously is not my favorite Mavi album. Um, I think a lot of people, when they think Mavi, they think about Let the Sun Talk from 2019.
Mm-hmm.
For me, 2022, Laughing So Hard It Hurts,
Yeah.
is perfect. Part of what made it
Yeah.
perfect was the beats were kind of weird, right? Mavi's flow is kind of weird. As I said, it's a little bit messy. So if the beat's messy, it's kind of perfect.
Yeah. I mean, I think you want to see, you kind of, as I said, you kind of want to see the artist stretching a little bit, trying new things, and even if it doesn't work out, I think what's the word I want to use? Any reaction is a good reaction. So even if you try something and it doesn't, you stretch a little bit and it doesn't work out, there still is a positivity to people saying, damn, like that didn't work for me.
Yeah, I mean, how would you describe the sonic character of this album? The music, like with Beach House and Angelo Leroy and Two Tone, and the world that they built here.
Yeah, for me, I think it kind of picked up for me. I'm so tired. That was the song where it kind of picked up for me,
It's
and
a great song. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I think like the beat wise, I mean, it was there were I didn't really have any complaints. Like I thought sonically it was good.
I thought it was a
Uh,
little minimal. Like it was the
yeah,
the Sonic world kind of acknowledged we're not the star here. He's the star
right.
here,
Yes,
and
agreed.
we
Which I did
are.
like. I did
Yeah.
like that. As a fan of lyrics, I think you'll really, if you like lyrics, you'll really enjoy this project.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, but like, yeah, I just loved Hemlock and the weird shit on the last one.
Mm-hmm.
But Grindstone on this crazy, um, you know, Too Much to Sell. I mean, The Giver. There's some there's some crazy songs out here,
Yeah.
and in 6 months I might love this album. I get the idea it's going to take time, right? Uh, the thing Mavi has that I really like is everything he sounds really heartfelt.
Yes.
Um, I'm glad he did this kind of album because it's totally different from any other kinds of albums he's done before. He's never
Mm-hmm.
done this, right? He doesn't have a Shadowbox in his catalog, right? He doesn't just keep making these kind of albums.
Mm-hmm.
So he's already showing versatility in his talent, and I think that's awesome, right? At this point, I think Mavi is a genuinely important artist in our world.
Mm-hmm.
But the question I had after Laughing So Hard It Hurts was, why can't this guy just take over the world? Like, he's amazing. And I think after this album, I was like, oh, I know why he can't take over the world. Like, he's, you know, his flow is strange, and it's better to read, like that's not going to work for the general public,
For the market, right? You have to figure out a way to conceptualize it, and like I think of someone like, I guess, like Eminem and his whole thing with his mother at the beginning of his career.
right?
He took that trauma that he experienced with her, and he was able to create a narrative. I mean, some of the narrative, the fiction, like some of it was fiction, some of it was nonfiction, but he was able to create like this compelling narrative that people really attach to.
Absolutely.
And I think if Mavi wants to get to that next level to take over the world, you got to be able to create narratives that people attach to.
And if he doesn't, then that's cool. Like, I think
Right.
Mavi could definitely be, the indie rap version of the Mountain Goats.
Right.
And
it goes back to what we were saying about J. Cole at the beginning of the show. Like, Cole he had career decisions, and then he had artistic decisions. He made a lot of career decisions. So you're gonna have to make some career decisions, and you're gonna have to make some artistic decisions. And it's all about what you're comfortable with.
And we have a generation now, rapping now, that were raised watching Cole and Nicki Minaj make records that they regretted later.
Yeah.
Right?
But those records were huge records.
The whole Let Nas Down, right? The whole, like, that's part of their lexicon, know? So when they go to make their albums, they're trying to avoid that. I've been on record, Kay, as saying this musical environment is much more legacy focused. People are thinking, hey, probably not going to take over the world, like, not because of my talent, but because of the way it is, the way the system works.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can't control that, I can control my work.
Yeah.
My legacy, what I leave etched in.
Uh, 100%. 100%. And you see that in all forms of entertainment right now.
Absolutely.
I think a lot, and I won't mention it, there are a lot of sports guys who think the same way.
Yeah.
But that's just how it is. You're right. They what you can control is the brand or the discography. So they're making choices with that in mind, with the end in mind, as opposed to making choices based on how they feel at the present time.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's yeah, that's, I mean, so there's a lot of ways to go with this issue, right? Like, as an audience member, I want to see the people I think are the best in spotlighted positions, because I want the world to know they're great. I want the world to learn from them like I'm learning from, right? I want the world to have Mavi because the world needs Mavi, right? So if an artist decides and says, hey, like I'm just gonna be legacy focused and I'm not gonna try and push to the next level, part of me as an audience member is like, but the next level needs you, bro. Like it's hard up there. The next level
For
needs you.
me, for me, I think of it as the audience needs to, it's almost like you go to, like the way I'm thinking about it is like you go to an open mic, right? And maybe it's like people are playing instruments. And like none of these guys are ever going to be like have like a major label release. But
Right.
you can see the sincerity in their eyes. And you're like, you know what? I'm gonna do what I can to support this person. Whether show up to the shows, clap, buy a CD, buy a shirt. That's what I can do.
Right. Totally.
And so I think with a lot of these artists, they're not going to get bigger because the environment is not designed for them. Like you said, the market, it's not designed for them to get bigger. So they can find their audience and their core of people that are going to support them and allow them to make a living off of their art. And they may not be able to have like, the mansion on the waterfront, but they'll be able to have a solid living and live with artistic integrity in a way that the guys who don't, in the way that the guys who live in the mansions can't.
This is why I wanted you here, Kay, to keep me realistic in terms of
Yeah.
my expectations. Uh, so Shadowbox, right? I already said I think Memoirs and Armour is like number 34 on your best album list that you don't remember 2 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Shadowbox surpasses that?
To me personally, when you say surpass, what do you mean?
Um, is this an album that's gonna? Do you think it's gonna carry with you? Do you think it
Me
has that
personally,
potential?
no.
Huh?
Me personally, no. But I may not have been who the album was made for. I don't think I was who the album was made for. I think I think for the Mavi fans and the people who are really his supporters, yes, I think it'll be something that they will carry with them. And I think that that's good enough.
Right. So okay. So this is not something that'll win a new audience, but it is
No.
something that will galvanize an existing audience.
Yes, because I just don't think for me, and that's what I mean in terms of fiction. Like if I'm not your audience, what can I attach to? And I'm not, it's sometimes people will attach to the emotion, but I think most of the time people attach to the story. So if there's no story or there's no narrative for me to attach to, it's not going to really stick with me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's real.
And to me there wasn't enough like the lyrics to me, they were poetic, but it wasn't poetic in like a technical level where I could sit down and like break down, appreciate it on like a technical level. Like, oh, look at how he formed these bars in
Right.
like a unique creative way.
It
I'm not
wasn't
saying
like
he
a
doesn't
black
have
thought, like,
lyrics.
oh my God, I got to look that word up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or I mean, look at how he used the meter, like in a very poet. It wasn't quite at that level to me. So there'd be me personally, and I'm not saying this was bad because it wasn't bad, obviously. Me personally, there's nothing that I would come back to.
Yeah, I mean, well, and it because it's so cohesive, it doesn't really have standout tracks that you can fit into a playlist,
Well,
right? You know, you're not gonna be like, oh shit, throw I'm so tired in there at number 7. Like, no, you know, it's not gonna be on your playlist.
and did it? I can't remember. I did this album have hooks or choruses? I don't recall. It maybe a few songs did, but I can't recall if they did off the top of my head.
If they did, they
Uh,
weren't delivered in a way that was different from the verses.
right. And so like I think of like I listen to, and I'll go back to Saba, Take Care, Care for Me. Like that song, like there was a song Calligraphy, uh that had a off that album that I go back to, at least, once a month, uh because of that chorus. Uh so I mean I think you've got to have things where people can attach to, and there wasn't for me for there wasn't anything I could attach to.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's fair. Um, as a critique of it, it's a hell of a listen. Everybody should listen to it, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's like one of those beautiful independent films you see once, you never forget, but you don't watch again.
Right.
You know?
Because there's just right, and there's some experiences like that where you're like, damn, that was wild. Like I love what they did there, but there's no reason for you to go back to it.
Right.
And that's not speaking bad on the way on the work itself.
No,
It's just for you personally, there's just nothing there for you to attach to.
you might come back to it. It might be playing somewhere in 4 years,
Right.
and you're like, oh, let me check it out. And you're like blown away again.
Right.
But you're like,
Absolutely right.
but you're like, I'm also not really going to come back to that voluntarily, right?
Right. It's like and to go back to the walking in the woods. You're walking in the woods, and maybe you see like like a beautiful flower or something, like, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's a gorgeous flower. And then you move about it. You're not going to be thinking, you're just going to appreciate that flower for what it was at the moment, and then go about the rest of your day in life.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, for me, like the one I always use, the movie example I always use for this is
Okay.
Pan's Labyrinth by Guillermo del Toro.
Okay.
I was in the theater with my homie on that shit, and we watched it, and I was like, that was fucking beautiful, and I never want to see it again.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Spanish Fascism Explained. I'm good.
Right.
It's not a popcorn flick for me. I ain't coming back.
Right.
There's hints of that within this, but I think Mavi's smart enough to know that situation, right?
Yeah.
And he had to get it out of him, so I respect it.
Yeah.
You want to go to recommendation corner?
Yeah. Yeah, man, we can go.
Ooh, we booked it, and it's not a sequel, Kay. That's what I love about it. I don't want to make a sequel. I want to do one of the things where a director gets the same cast together of their best movie, and they make a totally different movie that's just as badass.
Like Wes Anderson.
Yeah. So the thing is, last year, you weren't there. You were protesting us. But you missed that episode. Dylan Green and Dash Lewis came on together. Concentrated power of those two with me. and we talked about Diabetic Test Strips, the Armand Hammer album.
Mm-hmm.
And it's our 6th highest rated episode in the free space.
Mm-hmm.
People love that episode. People ping me all the time, like, man, I just heard that Diabetic Test Strips. Oh, it's amazing. I'm going to go back to the album. That made me very happy. It makes me very proud. We just booked them to come back and talk about the new Ka album.
Wow. They
Yeah.
released on a Monday. I haven't heard it yet, but
The Thief
looking
next
forward.
to Jesus. The Thief
Mm.
next to Jesus. Ka is at this point selling it through his website. It is not on streaming yet. I have it, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm loving it. I'm bathing in it, But and Dash has so many takes ready, locked, and loaded already. And I'm just so excited that that's going to happen. We're also going to talk to Alaska Steel Tip Dove. So cool. The Reverberations of a Dead Man's Ego is amazing. Yeah. But to plug people that are not in the guest pipeline, J.U.S released an album with Squad B called Third Shift.
Mm.
Just is a part of Bruiser Brigade. This is the Danny Brown outfit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Detroit. So Z Loopers is on it. Fat Ray kills it. Fat Ray's all over it, just murdering shit. It's so fun. It's so fun. Like, I always think of Bruiser Brigade as like 70s punk rock.
Mm-hmm.
70s punk rock was a total rejection of disco. And it was like, these songs are short and they're crazy and we're going off and we're done.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing will be overcomplicated. Nothing will be overly silly. We're just going to go hard and get out.
Right.
And to me, that's the strength of what Bruiser Brigade does. This is a really beautiful, fun ass album. So I would say to check that out. Let me see if there's anything on the Bandcamp I should recommend. Oh, yeah. Truck North Gorgon. Truck North has been releasing a bunch of stuff from Philly. I played a Truck North freestyle for my son. I don't know if I've told you, my son's become really weirdly good at guessing where rappers are from.
Ooh.
I put on a
The
Truck North,
dialect.
freestyle, and I said, "Where's this guy from?" And he was like, "Philly, of course." Like, what do you mean? He sounds just like Zilla Rock.
Oh man.
I was dying. The one that really fucked me up. Okay. I'm trying to show him hip hop history, right? So I'm like, here is what you see is what you get now by Exhibit.
Okay.
It's an example of West Coast hip hop. And he goes, "This guy's from Detroit." What are you talking about? He's like, "Can't you hear it? It's from Detroit." Like, this fucking guy's in Chucks with lines on his Chucks, with lines on his khakis. Like, get out of here. I look it up. Guess where he's from?
Wow.
Exhibit's from Detroit. Moved to LA in his late teen years. I was like, this motherfucker's weird, man.
Oh, I would never let you forget that. Yeah, you can never. That's ooh. I didn't even know he was from.
I did. My son's gotten me a few times, bro. He's crazy with it. I love it, but it's
It's a fresh set of ears. Sometimes the kids are hearing things we weren't hearing. So,
but he's starting to hear connections,
wow.
And that's really cool. That's really dope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh, by the way, Kay, on the 6th of September, LL Cool J's got a new album coming out called Force.
I'm intrigued by that.
Have you heard the singles?
No.
They're crazy. You should check the singles, dude. Um, he's got one with Saweetie on it. Like, it's crazy, called Proclivities.
Proclivities.
LL, baby. But he sounds really determined, really focused on this. I'm super excited about it. I put it on Instagram in the stories like, hey, when this happens, when this album comes out, I'm going to write a letter and send it to LL Cool J. Because he has been important to my musical life my whole life.
Oh man. He's like the Janet Jackson of hip hop.
And so it's a great comparison. I was like, I've just got to put, I've got to put it, print it, put it in the envelope, put the stamp on it. I've got to physically do that.
Oh yeah.
For him, because that's for me, because that's what it is. Like, so, and so I put that in the story, and he reposted it.
LL? Oh shit, you better start writing drafts of that letter up then.
I'm not worried about my pen. I'm not worried about my pen. Yeah, but I'm into it. Yeah, that's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. I've only done this with two other celebrities, Mark Maron and Beyonce.
Now LL.
Yeah.
That's a good I've thought about doing that. I've thought about not like writing letters. I've thought about like, what's wrong with like hearing an album and then just sliding in someone's DMs like, hey man, I really like what you did there.
I do it all the time, but I have a little more access now. But like,
Bro,
um, for me, like there hit a point where it was special. Somebody's doing something special, you know?
mm-hmm.
And I was like, all right, like it's time to write this person a letter. Like they've been in my life heavily,
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
So,
this will be important. This will be interesting.
yeah.
My relationship with LL Cool J is not a singular thing. LL Cool J's
Okay, I'll
been
let
through
you elaborate on that.
LL Cool J's been through a lot of phases,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't understand what the fuck was going on for a lot of them. So you know, he grew me up in a lot of ways. Because he was ahead of me, you know.
It's fascinating because I was just thinking about so he had a project with the Neptunes that came out, the song with Love You Better and then the Paradise song.
Yep.
That came out what in like 2002, 2003, right? That
Yep.
was over 20 years ago.
Crazy, dude.
And people thought that like in 2003, people thought that was like the tail end of his career.
Right.
It's it's incredible.
Incredible stuff, dude. I'm into it. So uh yeah. I will I'll start working though. I gotta start working. Uh I got time. So but yeah. Man, shout out to everybody joining the free space, uh getting listenership up there. Patreon is strong.
Mm.
Strong. Yeah, shout out to Mega from Secret House Against becoming a member. OG Nick Marsh becoming a member.
Mhm.
It's community, dog. Like I love it. Um, it's beautiful. We can do more together than apart, certainly.
Absolutely.
So what are you bumping?
Music wise, I'm not listening to anything new, but I did like so HBO has a show called Industry.
Oh yes, I've heard
Uh
about this.
that recently started back up again for season 3. They're 2 episodes in now, and I'm really enjoying that show. So, and then I will say, so I did watch a documentary on Netflix, Dirty Pop. It was about Lou Pearlman.
Oh yeah.
And I was pleasantly surprised at how interesting that was to me.
Yeah, I don't know. Lou Pearlman's gross. It was always gross. Whenever they like flashed Lou Pearlman, I was like, no, man. Like, get the mace out of my bag, dog. I'm not, I was never
But
into it.
yeah, so that's I would recommend Industry and then Dirty Pop, the documentary on Netflix. So
Sometimes they would cut to like a music executive back in the day, and you'd be like, that's the definition of a sleazy music executive. Like, you had to like come up with a character, like that would be the guy. Anyway, but I haven't seen the documentary, so that seems interesting. There's a show my wife made me watch.
Okay.
Called Umbrella Academy.
Oh, I've heard of that.
And she made me watch first season. Said, fine, I'll watch the second season. And this is their last season. And she was like, would you be willing to watch this last season with me? And I'm like, kind of looking forward to it. Like, it got really good. I'm really glad.
It takes a real man to admit that. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah,
I'm really glad that I'm that I stuck with it, and that they stuck with it and landed where they landed. But ultimately, it's a very unique situation. I'm always taste testing where I am with these things, and like, because I understand that I'm not always rational with it. So I'm always interested in where I am and reevaluating. I was talking to my wife about it, and I was like, that's the mechanism of Dan. Dan's not smart. Like, that's not his thing. But the mechanism of Dan is constant reevaluation of everything. And that mechanism is good for me, and it has a positive effect on the people around me.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Long live the mechanism.
What will tomorrow bring?